Well, there was a special election in Tennessee yesterday, and over the past few weeks, there has been increasing talk of a possible upset by Dem candidate Afton Bain. But last night, the results came in, and the GOP candidate, generic white man in suit, model number 14-88, won by 9 points. And in a vacuum, that sounds like a healthy margin. And that's exactly the way the American right is talking about it today. They're like, look at that, not even close. 9 points. Nine's almost 10. 10's almost a bunch. You actually thought you had a chance, huh? Scoreboard losers, suck it. You know, their usual brand of erudite professionalism. But don't let them fool you. This is actually pretty wild, right? I'm from Middle Tennessee. I spend every Christmas in the most rural part of this very district. So I can tell you, it's the type of place where saying Obama's name out loud will get you booed out of a potluck, all right? I went to a wedding there once, and my mother-in-law told me afterwards that everyone else was stunned that I didn't burst into flames upon entering the church. She also told me there hadn't been a gay person there since the English teacher's son moved to San Fran back in '97. So a swing county, it is not. Right? In fact, this district is one of the most deeply, solidly, ruby red parts of this whole country. All right, I promise you. Trump carried this same district by 22 points a year ago. All right, so don't let them bullshit you. The fact that they had to spend millions of dollars and call in every big gun they have just to beat an outspoken, progressive woman in a district where all three of those things are heavily frowned upon by only single digits. Like, however they try to spin it, they're not shitting the bed about this, okay? But the real question here is, like, how much does it mean going forward? You know, because everybody on the left knows we've been here before. We've danced with the alluring and ethereal siren known as hope, you know, and we know that all too often the clock strikes midnight and she's replaced by the surly pumpkin-faced hussy of despair, right? We know, but still the possible implications of this are simply too delicious to ignore, right? This margin would have been enough to flip more than 30 other Republican seats in a razor-thin House. That has to make the GOP nervous going into the midterms, and the best part of it all, they've done this to themselves. They gerrymandered Nashville into 3 separate parts and diluted those votes with the surrounding rural areas because they assumed that the MAGA base could never be swayed. They assumed that they could just squeeze these people as hard as they wanted to, and as long as they left one arm free for pointing and laughing at the immigrants and trans people being squeezed even harder, that the base would stay in line, right? And they followed this strategy all around the country. But Afton Bain made gains in every county, even the most reddest ones, right? And not all the new districts they've drawn are as safe as Tennessee 7 was either. So just the idea that Republican greed and hubris could lead to them shooting themselves in the foot and accidentally bringing about a blue wave because they took their own voters for granted, straight into my veins, y'all. And look, it was a long way to go, and I'm damn sure not counting any chickens yet. I'm just saying, like, goddamn, how sweet would that be, right? All right, YouTube, I got more for you, a lot more in just a second. But first, you know, this story, more so than many other ones, is susceptible to one of the biggest problems in our media today, I think. Narrative sculpting. Here's what I mean.
Okay, so take this article from the Daily Signal with the headline Republican Triumphs in Tennessee Special House Election. You can see here it says Matt Van Epps triumphed, stifling talk of a possible Democrat upset. Don't worry, y'all, the talk has been stifled. We got it done at the end of the day. Most of the articles about how Trump delivered this win personally for the GOP, and then they devote a little time to how insane Afton Bain is, in their opinion. And at the very bottom, in the form of 2 small sentences, they finally present the possible notion that this could be a bad sign. But you have to get all the way to the bottom of the article before you even get any hint of that idea from this particular outlet. But if you use the Ground News Chrome extension, click through the full coverage of the story, you can start to see a bigger picture come together. That's what Ground News does. They compile all the coverage of any given story in one place at one time so you can decide for yourself what the reality is, right? And if you use Ground News to sort by bias and you look at the right-leaning outlets, they're mostly focusing on the fact that the Republicans won, which makes sense, right? Republicans hold the House seat. Republicans hold on to House seat in Tennessee special election. If you look instead at the left-leaning outlet, they're focusing on something entirely different. You know, not too close, but too close for comfort. Republicans' narrow win in deep red district is a quote flashing warning sign for the GOP, and you can see this comes from a outlet with a high degree of factuality and has a left-leaning bias. If you sort by center, you can see this center-leaning outlet with a very high degree of factuality says Trump lauds the GOP's big win as tight race spurs midterm jitters. So you can see from that headline before you even click that they are presenting both sides of the argument. That's kind of hard to come by with this particular story, but when you have Ground News, you can extract both sides of any given story, whether the media wants you to or not. That's what Ground News does. They provide you with context, transparency, and above all else, media literacy in a time when that's never been more important.
So if that sounds good to you, scan that QR code or scan the link in the description below to try Ground News today. You can get 40% off their highest tiered Vantage plan. It's got all the bells and whistles. Comes out to $5 a month, right in time for the holidays. And I like to say that's a low, low price for the big, big picture, y'all. It's time. Check out Ground News today.
All right, YouTube, and we're back. Yes, we're in these familiar climes once again, back here in my office, doing it this way. If you watched last week's video, then you knew that this was coming, or you probably forgot, but now you've been reminded that this was coming. If you didn't watch last week's video, I'm switching things up a little bit, treating the classic Jeep Rants as an opening segment, and then doing a little bit of a longer form thing on the back end, because that's what the gods of YouTube demand, I reckon. Not that I have a problem talking. I love running my mouth, so don't worry about me. I'm doing just fine. I just hope that it's, acceptable, if not, hopefully enjoyable for yuns as well. So this week's topic, Afton Bain, special election, the implications thereof. So I thought, we'd use this time, and this is generally what I'm going to do going forward. Either do more of a deep dive into the specifics of a given story that I don't have time to get into in 3 minutes, which is what I'm going to do this week, or, cover other stories that, I almost talked about but didn't have time to in the video, or, whatever, didn't make the list and whatnot. So my hat and everything's wild looking. It's because that's in the front. What's happening? Anyway, yeah. Whatever. Sorry. Thanks for watching. Also, last week, immediately, some people told me, pointing out this. They're like, is that a bullet hole behind you? You probably should fix that or cover it up. You might be playing into some unfortunate stereotypes, looking like you have a bullet hole behind you. And at first, when I thought it just looked bad, like just a hole behind me, I was like, yeah, I probably ought to do something about that. But then when they were like, yeah, it looks like a bullet hole, it's kind of like hillbilly stereotypes. Once they said that, I was like, well, now I kind of like it. Now that you mention that. Now I want to leave it there just out of hillbilly spite. But no, I don't know. We'll see. I was about to say I'll do something about it, but then I was like, you probably won't. But I might. I don't know. We'll find out. Anyway, Afton Bain lost the Tennessee special election for the Tennessee 7th Congressional District by 9 points yesterday to empty suit Matt Van Epps, right? Who was totally just like just a hand-picked puppet for Trump. Literally his only policy position seems to have been what Trump say, me do. Me proxy for Trump. Trump gives say, me say okay. Pretty much just that. That's basically seems to be all he's about, which is all it takes to win in some of these districts. And in the run up to and this was completely a foregone conclusion when the old GOP congressman there announced his retirement to join the private sector. A lot of Republican Congress people turning tail and running right now. That's also an interesting element of this. I would argue, if you think about the classic rats, what rats do on ships when certain things start to happen. Just saying. But anyway, that happened, and there was going to be a special election. Foregone conclusion. They'll pick their guy. They got their guy, Matt Van Epps. It's going to be that guy. No one expected it to even be remotely competitive. And then all of a sudden it seemed like it might be, and now all of a sudden it's getting more and more interest and attention and resources piled into it. Afton gets put under the spotlight. She was on my politics podcast last week, Weekly Skews, talking about how she'd drawn the ire of of the mayonnaise brigade and everything, and they were coming after her, and it was a wild experience, and I'm sure it is. And it just blew way out of proportion by the time it was all said and done. The night before, you've got Trump weighing in on their side, and you've got everybody from AOC to my good close personal friend Al Gore weighing in on Afton's side, because it was like, oh my God, she might have a shot at this thing. And alas, and in the end, it was not to be. But there were a lot of people prepping the world, or at least the Democratic world in this country, for the idea of a moral victory of sorts. People even in the run up to it being like, look, she's got a real shot at this thing. But even if she doesn't pull it off, depending on how it goes, this still could be good, right? And then that's essentially what happened. And that's the narrative that seems to be emerging from it, the one I talked about up front in the opening segment, the opening rant, is that, okay, so they won, but it's not a great look at the very least. They are, for their part, trying to spin it heavily, as I alluded to in the video. If you get on Twitter and say all the chuds, all the right MAGA chuds over there, they're all just like, it's not even 9 points. They act like it was actually close. It wasn't close. You got destroyed. Fucking take your ball and go home, like that type of shit, acting like it isn't at all alarming. I've seen noted political sportscaster slash loudmouth asshole Clay Travis, who's a Tennessee staple, unfortunately, spinning it as such, saying like, look, here's what really happened. End of the day, Democrats threw everything they had at this. They emptied their entire clip at this thing, and it wasn't enough to get it done. That's how solidly red Tennessee is. But I think that's pretty transparently bullshit, at least that part of it. The only reason they put resources into it at all is because it was called into question, which no one ever expected it to be. So the fact that it was even up for grabs and resources became relevant is an indictment of the current state of the Republican Party, with the American electorate, at least ostensibly. There's people on the left who are celebrating this overmuch. That's the other thing, too. It's like, I understand all those arguments. Again, even in my rant, I essentially landed on that side myself. Like, no, this does mean something. This is at least somewhat encouraging, but as I also alluded to. But I'm trepidatious at best. I'm hesitant to get overly optimistic about anything in this goddamn country, at least where politics is concerned, especially where democratic politics are concerned in particular. But and there's a lot of people like that, a lot of doomers out there too. You got, as with everything, anytime the left ever comes up, runs the entire spectrum. There's people like really popping bottles, getting, I think, a little too fired up about this. Then there's people on the other end being like, this don't mean shit. People being like, look, Democrats always perform better in special elections because they're more engaged generally. This doesn't, you can't extrapolate anything from this going forward. Also, I've been burned too many times, and I just don't believe it. Right. And again, I can understand the cynicism, the jaded nature of many people on the American left. Lord knows, I've felt it many times myself. But as I said in the video, it has a lot to do with the fact that I spend a lot of time in this particular district. Like my family, my in-laws, who are my family, obviously, they live in this district, and it is wild, dude. It should have never even been talked about, considered by anybody, that it might flip based on my experiences there, my decade plus of experiences there. And so I can't help but think that it is indicative of something, but just how much of a something and how much that something will amount to in the long run, God only knows. Who even knows if, we'll even have actual elections by the time this, begins to matter even further, a la the midterms next year. There's also been people so there's all kinds of sub debates happening about this, because there's been people saying, like, people on the left trying to be optimistic in the face of doomerism, being like, look, dude, the truth is she was not a great candidate, right? That's not me saying that. I'm saying this is what I've seen people say, other people on the left, being like, she was not a great candidate, and it was still a 13-point jump. All right? Like, you can't look me in the eye and tell me that don't mean something, because she really wasn't all that great. And the arguments that they make about her not being that great, or just the fact, I kind of alluded to this in the video, just the fact that, she's like pretty left by American standards. She'd be a moderate at best in Europe. Hell, I probably would be too. But in this country, she's, pretty far to the left in a district that has a big chunk of the rural South who's seen as too much. She's a woman. She talks. So these things are problems. And they took a lot of like former quotes of hers and stuff kind of out of context and weaponized them against her in a way that even people on the left thought was pretty effective. Probably the most famous one, if you didn't see it, was there was a clip where she was talking about, she's like, I hate so many things that make Nashville, I hate them, basically. I hate the pedal pubs. I hate the bachelorette parties. I hate Broadway. I hate all this. I hate all that. She got absolutely raked for this, being like, how could you vote for someone to represent Nashville who openly hates Nashville? It's ridiculous. But I feel like anyone who's I'm not from Nashville, but I'm from Middle Tennessee. I've been going to Nashville my whole life. I'm going to Nashville in 2 weeks. And I feel like anyone who really knows Nashville and is from there or even that area and is not being a disingenuous prick about it knows that the truth is every actual native agrees with every fucking word she said. I mean, in fact, I myself, not to make it about me, but I did a podcast out here in LA recently, and the host asked me about Nashville, and I went on a little mini tirade about the exact same things, and it kind of, it did some numbers on Instagram, but I said basically all the same shit that she did. Most people do. Like anybody that's been going to Nashville for years knows that like a lot of what has made at Nashville an it city and what it's turned into is like annoying at best, stomach turning at worst. I haven't been on Broadway in like a decade and I have no interest in going. And most of the people who like again are Middle Tennesseans who know Nashville for real feel the exact same way wherever they live. And it gets, so even people that are like conservatives, I think agree with most of that and just act like they don't because it's an easy way to demonize this woman who's doing a thing that they don't like. So I thought that was blown way out of proportion. They talked about her like she was crazy, radical again. And I don't know how you can really justify that. And this, she want to make groceries cheaper. How insane, right? So I don't know, other than just demographically speaking, and I say that as an indictment on the district itself. Just again, the fact that she's a woman. Outside of that, I don't know. I don't feel like she did that bad or was a bad candidate or anything, other than just the hopeless nature of running as a woman on the left in that part of my homeland. I mean, I guess I could give a little bit of credence to that, but in terms of what it means for the because then there's also, and I talked about this in the video, the whole idea of, they gerrymandered this district in the first place. It didn't used to exist in this form. It was solidly, undoubtedly red, and they got greedy and they put a little bit of Nashville in there, and suddenly it's up for grabs, which they never expected. They've done that in states all over the country, and it feels like, again, the idea being it's like, well, the rest of these parts of these new gerrymandered districts are so solidly us, we're never going to lose these people no matter what. So even if we put a little bit of blue bullshit in here, we'll still be able to weather that storm. And this one, I think, has given them pause because it, got closer than they thought it would. I feel like, especially when you look at the blue word shift in a lot of the redder and more rural parts of this district, there's no other takeaway from that other than they may have overstepped or overestimated. Like, look, we all know there's a certain segment, a certain chunk of the MAGA world that's like they are dug in like a tick. They ain't no getting them out, no matter what. Like nothing can ever do it, and that's true. But there is a certain percentage that does seem movable, that does seem like they have a line that does seem like they can be pushed too far, it seems to me like. And the question next November is going to be like, what is that ratio? How big of a percentage is that ladder column? Is it enough to make a difference? Will they actually, show up when it matters? Or hell, they don't even have to. I mean, really, if they've been MAGA and they're disenchanted, stay home. That's fine with me. I'll take that. We count those. I'll take that all day. So a lot of questions remaining to be answered. But if nothing else, I think that this result shows that, like, there's at least some potential for flaws in this big master plan of theirs, some potential for it backfiring tremendously. I'm not going to count on that happening. I've been in this country for too goddamn long as a leftist. So I'm far from, expecting that. But I do think yesterday indicates that it is at least within the realm of possibility, which is something. All right, that's it for this week's edition. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. I'll put the things up on the screen here. Watch my special Trash Daddy. Subscribe to the channel. Get these videos, cooking videos, stand-up clips, podcasts. And importantly, the other one's TraeCrowder.com. Check out my tour dates. I'm a touring stand-up comedian. If I'm coming near you, come see me. If you see this week, I'm in Fort Wayne, Indiana this weekend. Come out. But check it out. If I'm coming near you, get a ticket. It's a good time. I promise. Either way, if you keep watching these, I'll keep making them. I love you like chicken. Hang in there, everybody. See you. Bye.